Shavua Tov, good afternoon everybody. Welcome to the Israel Brief with me, Rolene Marks, right here at Israel Brief Center in Modi'in in the center of Israel. And as always, the Israel Brief is brought to you by these guys, Lay of the Land. So it has been a roller coaster of emotions this past weekend. Let's take a look at those top stories as I bring you the updates on day 52 of Israel's war against Hamas. And what a weekend it has been. Today is Monday, the fourth day of a 4-day ceasefire that went into effect at 7 a.m. on Friday morning. Now, there were rockets fired from the Gaza Strip towards the southern towns of Kisufim and Ein HaShlosha just 15 minutes later, but the ceasefire has been holding. One of the criteria or agreements as part of the ceasefire would be the release of hostages being held by Hamas and other terror entities in the Gaza Strip in exchange for humanitarian aid and for a ceasing in the military action in Gaza. Now, to date, COGAT, this is the coordination for Gaza and the territories, this is a unit as part of the IDF, have confirmed that hundreds of trucks with humanitarian aid, including cooking fuel, have entered the Gaza Strip. And of course, the criteria was the exchange of hostages. I have to tell you, Friday was probably one of the most emotional days for all of us here in Israel as we waited with bated breath to find out what would happen. As we discussed last week, everything was meant to go into effect on Thursday, and this was delayed until Friday. And we got news on Friday that at 4 p.m., just before Shabbat came in, we would see the first tranche of hostages released. Now, amongst those were several elderly women, including Adina Moshe, who, as she was helped out of the vehicle, the Red Crescent vehicle, to be transferred to the Red Cross by Hamas, slapped away their hands. We have to be very, very aware that Hamas is a terror organization, and hostage exchanges bring with them opportunities for them to engage in psychological warfare. So if you see hostages slapping away hands or smiling and waving and looking happy, they're doing so under duress. This is Hamas wanting to show that they are humanitarians. They are not humanitarians at all. They are fomentarians. These same people are the same people that have murdered and raped and tortured members of these hostages' families. So the hostages were transferred into Red Cross vehicles. Some of them said afterwards they were absolutely terrified until they got into those Red Cross vehicles, thinking that they were on their way to possibly be executed. They also spoke about how stones and other objects were thrown at the Red Crescent ambulances. And we watched with bated breath as the convoy entered into the Rafah crossing. They were then boarded onto a bus, and we were all extremely relieved when we saw that bus enter Israeli territory and took their precious charges to Hatzerim Air Base, where they were checked out and then sent on to hospitals. Now, some of the families have agreed to visuals being released. One of those families is 9-year-old Ohad Munder. And I tell you, not a dry eye in this entire country as we saw 9-year-old Ohad run into the arms of his father. He turned 9 while in captivity, and his friends joined him on Friday night to give him a little bit of a birthday party. You can see my eyes starting to well up. Saturday, we had delays with exchanges of hostages. We all thought that once again, this is Hamas playing their psychological warfare games until the absolute last minute. Now, Hamas alleged that Israel had negated on some of the ceasefire agreements, which were not true. They said that there wasn't enough humanitarian aid. This was disputed. In fact, there was no corroboration whatsoever for Hamas's claims. We don't forget for 1 second exactly who we are dealing with. But much later in the day, we got news that Egyptian authorities had entered the Gaza Strip and spoke to Hamas in no uncertain terms, using, as one pundit called it, juicy curses to ensure that they sprung into agreement with what was agreed upon. The Qatari officials also reportedly warned them not to play games, that people are running out of patience. Now, Qatar has been instrumental in these negotiations. However, we are very cautious because we understand exactly who is funding Hamas and where Hamas leaders look for refuge, and they found refuge in Doha, the capital of Qatar, in 6-star hotels. So we're not getting too excited just yet. Nevertheless, those hostages were transferred, and we all woke up yesterday morning to the incredible news that Emily Hand was amongst those. Little Emily Hand, we can't forget her father, Thomas Hand, at the beginning of this war, that excruciating interview when he said, "When I heard she was dead, I went, yes, because she would have to endure the unendurable in Gaza." Nevertheless, she is safe back in the arms of her loving father, along with some of the other hostages, 13 of the other hostages. We also have to note that Thai foreign nationals have been released. They were part of a separate deal. Yesterday, a Israeli-Russian national was released as part of a separate deal that was insisted upon by President Putin. But to see Emily safe in the arms of her father was just, how do we even portray it in adequate words? Her father said she is very thin, but she is in better condition than expected, and the long road ahead begins. And here we have to give kavod to all the medical teams, the IDF teams, who are handling the release of the hostages with the utmost respect, sensitivity, and love. Last night, everything seemed to proceed as agreed upon, and 14 hostages were released, among them 4-year-old Abigail Idan. She is a dual US-Israeli citizen. Abigail is an orphan. Her parents were killed in front of her eyes. On the 7th of October, her 2 elder siblings managed to hide in a cupboard. And how do we even comprehend 2 little ones having to sit on the line with a Magen David Adom dispatcher who said, "Stay in there until the good people come"? Little Abigail, who was in her father's arms and he was shot, she ran covered in his blood to the neighbors and was abducted along with them. Now, we haven't seen any visuals of Abigail except for her in the Red Cross ambulance, sitting on people's laps, the other hostages' laps, but we just hope and we know that she is surrounded in the love and in the embrace of her family. And now today we will wait to see what happens. Hostage release is set to happen shortly, around about 4 o'clock. There have been reports that there are concerns about the list of hostages that were given to the government today. We don't know what those concerns are. We do know that Hamas has said that they don't have all of the hostages. Some of them are in the hands of unknown gangs in the Gaza Strip, which to me is absolutely terrifying news. Now, Israel has been exchanging at a ratio of 3-to-1 prisoners that have been kept in Israeli jails. These are not hostages, contrary to what some in the press would have you believe. These are prisoners, some with blood on their hands, having committed terror attacks against Israeli civilians. Hamas has put in a formal request for an extension of the ceasefire. There are other international institutions like NATO who have recommended an extension of the ceasefire in order to get more humanitarian aid in. Israel has been resolutely clear. The minute we can, we will resume our military campaign for the elimination of Hamas. Just as a point of interest on Friday night after their prisoners were released from Israeli jail. 2 were charged or alleged to have been corroborators with Israeli authorities and were shot and lynched and thrown in garbage. So that gives you an indication of exactly who we are dealing with. So we will see. We don't know who's on the list for today, but we hope and we pray that 10-month-old baby Kfir, who's still in captivity in Gaza, that he is one of those who will be released. That is our hope and our prayer. Give back our baby. Just a short while ago, philanthropist and businessman Elon Musk toured Kibbutz Kfar Aza along with Prime Minister Netanyahu. The owner of X and the Tesla founder is in Israel, in part to see for himself what happened on the 7th of October, but also to meet with Israeli officials to talk about rising anti-Semitism. He is due to meet with President Herzog shortly. Elon Musk has said that he will give any ad revenue to the victims working with victims of the 7/10 atrocities, as well as Red Cross and Red Crescent ambulance services in the Gaza Strip. Yesterday, what sights greeted us from London, the capital of England, as 105,000 people, many of them not Jewish, all gathered in the streets of the capital to say zero tolerance for anti-Semitism. Now, some police have estimated the crowds could have been as big as 160,000. Nevertheless, it was really, really magnificent to see. My heart swelled considering all the hate marches that we have seen in London over the last couple of weekends, and nobody covered their faces, nobody defaced property, nobody disrespected statues. Everything went smoothly, peacefully, and dignified. And finally, Human Rights Watch has confirmed what we have known for over a month, and that is that the strike on the Al-Ali hospital, or actually parking lot, was caused by a misfiring Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket. So there we are. Can we put that one to bed? Just on that subject, Jeremy Bowen of the BBC, the notorious BBC, that one, says that he got that report wrong, but hey, he doesn't regret it. Well, Jeremy, you might want to speak to the millions of Jews around the world who are frightened for their security now as a result of some of the hate-mongering that is going around the world, in particular driven by misinformation and misreporting like yours. And that brings us to the end of today's edition of the Israel Brief. Please, God, I will have some good news to report tomorrow with exchange of hostages. Don't forget to check out our in-depth coverage on our website at www.layoftheland.online, our YouTube channel at the Israel Brief. Like, share, subscribe. You guys know the deal. We're on X, owned by Elon Musk, at Lay of the Land 5, and on Facebook at Lottle's Side. I'm Rolene Marks. Take care of yourselves, and we'll meet again tomorrow.